Hello. It's the next day. It's actually like almost 5:30 p.m. So we've had a whole morning and now I'm getting ready for a double date with some church friends who actually just moved here, so it'll be good to see them. And yeah, it's been a good day so far, so I'm finishing up getting ready and thought I would use this time to chat and give a little bit more context and in-depth insight to why I'm in Jacksonville, why we're here, what we're doing, what's going on, and how we made the ultimate decision to have a laparoscopy. Because if you haven't been keeping up with my videos, or I don't even know if I've really been so clear about our next steps, because I feel like my mind has been all over the place and there's just been a lot of little decisions within the bigger decision. And so I just want to catch you guys up to speed so that we're all on the same page, because you're on this journey with me. So if you're interested in learning more about why I'm in Jacksonville, then keep watching. Otherwise, just fast forward ahead, because I'm going to use this time to just be a little bit more educational, a little bit more chatty for those of you who are just curious, or for those of you who are about to start this journey, or maybe you're preparing for your laparoscopy or whatever. I just wanted to have a space on my channel where I spell out what we're doing, where we're at in our journey, so that I can clear the air in case there's any confusion, because I feel like even watching my videos back, like the one I was editing earlier, I was confused. I'm like, Janae, what are you doing? Where are you going and why are you going there? So this is less for like documentation purposes and more for you guys, because I've been getting this question a lot about what I'm doing, what the laparoscopy is like, what's the point, what's the recovery like. So I kind of want to answer all those questions in this video. So let's get into it, shall we? I actually don't know if I need to do any more makeup. I can put on some deodorant though. I know I've mentioned on here before about me switching to like cleaner products and being more conscious about not just what I put in my body, but on my body. So if you're wanting to know what deodorant I use, it's the Primarily Pure brand, and this scent is Vanilla Citrus. And you can't order them on Amazon, unfortunately, so I actually had to go to their website. They like had like a 2-pack, so I got to choose 2 different scents, and it shipped pretty quickly, and I've had this since like the beginning of the year, and it's really lasted me a long time, and I still have my other one to use once this runs out, so I feel like it was a really good deal. I don't remember how much I paid because it was months ago, but very clean ingredients, highly recommended to me by so many people in the fertility space. So Primarily Pure, check them out if you're interested. I feel like this all starts back at my biopsy last Christmas. Because IVF was basically going to be our next step after the 3 failed IUIs, part of my fertility doctor's protocol was to start by doing a Receptiva test, which tests for a BCL6 marker or something. Don't quote me on these letters and names, even though I should know these things. They're all written down somewhere. So just look these up if you're curious. But basically tests for inflammation in the body and also gives insight into how successful an embryo will be of sticking, which I feel like is good to know before you even start the IVF process. Also, it's worth to mention that this Receptiva test, depending on your results, can also be an indicator of somebody having endometriosis. An indicator, so it's still not a guarantee, but doctors can use the Receptiva test result to decide whether or not a patient needs, you know, further exploration for endometriosis. One thing I do appreciate about my fertility doctor in Sarasota is that he is very thorough. He seems to be up to date with all of the newest technology and tests and everything to give you the highest chances of being successful with fertility treatments. So I do like that and I'm very thankful for that. So the biopsy result is measured on a 1 to 4 scale. When I did my receptiva test back in December, mine came back as a 3.9. So basically almost as high as you can get. So that kind of gave us insight that I have a lot of inflammation going on, and my success rate of having an embryo actually stick was 12%, which I think on average for a healthy woman is like a 60%. So that's the goal, but here I am at a 12%. So what do I do about this result? Well, my fertility doctor presented 2 options, which after all the research and all the people we've talked to, I don't really think there are any other options outside of this, but I could be wrong. However, this is just my situation and we're running with it. So the doctor told me back in December that if we wanted to keep trying naturally or keep doing IUIs, then he would recommend go the laparoscopy route. However, he said if you want to do IVF, which is what we were already leaning towards, you can do the Lupron route. And after looking at the data points from both and this controlled study that kind of measured the success rates of women who did laparoscopy versus Lupron and then did IVF after, what were their success rates, and they're very comparable. So they're like neck and neck. I think the laparoscopy still was higher, but regardless, they were like neck and neck in each category. So all that to say, the Lupron route and the laparoscopy route were pretty much in the same boat. And so since my result was so high at a 3.9, there was concern that I might have endometriosis. But again, the only way to know is to do a laparoscopy. You really can't 100% know if anyone has endometriosis until you go in laparoscopically and look for yourself. Now, it's easier to diagnose in people who have textbook symptoms, right? You can pretty much say 99.9% sure that this person has endometriosis based on the symptoms, based on their history. But with me, if you've been watching my videos, you know that that's never been a concern brought up in any of my appointments because I don't have any textbook symptoms. However, it wasn't until I found these endometriosis specialists in Jacksonville, which was referred to me by a few friends on Facebook, because if they never would have spoken up about their infertility journeys, who knows if I ever would have found this place in Jacksonville. Who knows if I would even be here right now. So I'm very thankful for them and their testimonies. But I found these specialists in Jacksonville to kind of give me a second opinion. Now that I have my receptiva test result, now that I have some other things under my belt, I wanted to get them to look at me and see if they would also recommend a laparoscopy. So based on the testing they did, and because they're specialists in this area and they kind of see endometriosis every day, they pretty much told me that it's like 99% likely that I have endometriosis. They were pretty confident. So their recommendation was to go straight to the laparoscopy to verify if I even have it and then tackle the endometriosis for once and for all, and then I can resume with whatever else my fertility plans were. So that kind of gave me some confirmation and some direction. And then at our recent return patient consultation, I kind of brought these questions back up to our fertility doctor since we're reconsidering IVF. He kind of weighed out the pros and cons of both routes, but ended up saying he supports me either way, which is great. It's all about your comfort level. But I also wanted to just do additional research into both routes, and Alex wanted to do some research too. We didn't want to just take a few experts' words for it, so that I could make the most informative and best decision for my body. So all of that being said, if you go the surgery route, it is a more permanent solution because not only can they actually confirm if you have endometriosis or not, if you do have it, they can cut it out right then and there in the surgery, as well as cutting out any surrounding inflammatory tissues to really get it all out. And hopefully you never really have to deal with endometriosis ever again. Now within the surgery realm, there's the excisional route, which is the one I just explained, but then there's also the ablation route, which is where they burn it off instead of cut it out. And when researching those two different methods, time and time again, it was recommended to me that the excisional route is the better way to go because it is the more permanent solution versus an ablation. There's always a risk of the endometriosis growing back because you just burned it off at the surface level. You didn't cut out the root of it, if that makes sense. Now with the Lupron route, for people who don't want to go the surgery route because yes, it is more invasive, yes, you get put under. A lot of people are weary about anesthesia and of course recovery and just putting your body through that. You just never know how that's going to impact you. So the Lupron route is a less invasive way to go, and it actually consists of a 2-month stint of injections. So you'll do a Lupron injection for 1 month and then a Lupron injection for the 2nd month. And that comes in the middle of your IVF process. So you can start IVF, do the egg retrieval while you're waiting on the embryos to form. And if you're doing any genetic testing, you proceed with the Lupron, which helps, from my understanding, suppress any potential endometriosis by pretty much putting your body into early menopause for those 2 months. So it kind of slows down and ultimately stops all those hormones that help feed the endometriosis, and hopefully it'll start shrinking or at least be on pause for those 2 months. That way when you go in for your embryo transfer, you have a greater chance of the embryo sticking because hopefully now there's less inflammation. So again, the success rates of laparoscopy versus Lupron are pretty much the same. It's just a matter of which route you want to go and how much time and money you want to spend. So with the laparoscopy, from my understanding and the girls that I know that have done it, the recovery could be anywhere from a couple days to maybe a week or 2 and you're back on your feet. The Lupron is a guaranteed 2-month delay in the IVF process, at least with my fertility clinic. So having all of that mapped out in front of me, and when trying to decide which route we should go, my brain, and this is just how it works for me, is I just want to start off by knowing if I have something. I just want to know if I in fact have endometriosis. Based on the testing from the Jacksonville clinic and based on my biopsy result, yes, there's a strong likelihood that I could have endometriosis and just be asymptomatic this whole time, which apparently is very common, and it's called silent endometriosis, and it's definitely one of the leading causes of infertility. So this could be my situation, which is why we looked into Jacksonville in the first place, to kind of explore this other option and also increase my success rates before going into IVF. So with how my brain works, I first just wanted to know if I had endometriosis because something didn't sit right with me when thinking about taking the Lupron route, because again, I could be treating something that I potentially have, that we don't actually know if I have it or not, but I'm gonna put this thing in my body for 2 months, go through early menopause just based on a possibility of having endometriosis. So I just wanted to know for sure if I had it or not, and the route that gives me that answer is the laparoscopy. So that's where I started. And then when outweighing the pros and cons of the side effects of both, I feel like the laparoscopic route was less risky, a quicker recovery time, and was just better for my body versus the Lupron route. From some of the experts that I've talked to, even my acupuncturist made a comment on it, and the Jacksonville specialist, they all were pointing towards laparoscopy. And so I had to take that into account as well and trust their judgment, trust their experience. And it was all kind of lining up with the personal research that I was doing and that Alex was doing. So it all signs pointed to laparoscopy. So once I had all of that reassurance, it was pretty much go time. I didn't really question it. I didn't look any further, and we called the Jacksonville clinic and we scheduled our laparoscopy. So if you're on this road and you're faced with this decision and you want to know for once and for all if you have endometriosis, or maybe you have endometriosis, however you decide to treat it, just make sure you feel at peace about it. Make sure you sought wise counsel, make sure you did your research so that at the end of the day, you have peace about the decision you're making and what you're putting your body through. And so I had the most peace about doing a laparoscopy, and not only just confirming if I had endo, but also just treating it in the best way possible. And I was definitely looking for a more permanent solution, because one of the risks of doing the Lupron route is that yes, it still will increase your chances of getting pregnant with IVF, but also once you're pregnant, once you have your baby, once your cycle is back to normal, the potential endometriosis is still there. So I just wanted to tackle it now while I'm young and healthy and not have to worry about maybe having to face a laparoscopy in the future. So that's why we're here. And there is still a chance that we could do the laparoscopy and the surgeon goes in there and finds no endometriosis. He just finds, you know, regular inflammatory tissue, which hopefully he would still be able to cut that out as well. And they grade it on a 1 to 4 scale. So I could have, you know, stage 1 being a less amount of endometriosis all the way up to stage 4, which is like endometriosis is everywhere in my body. And again, they can still remove it all regardless right then and there. So Monday will be very telling, and I'm looking forward to just getting answers and having that clarity, because that's been the biggest thing for me in this whole journey. And so once I have that clarity and know for sure whether or not I have endometriosis, and then we were able to treat it, I can go into IVF with no delays, with no hesitations, knowing, you know, hopefully my success rate is up to that 60%, not have to worry about Lupron because we took care of everything up front. Hopefully that is the goal, right? So with all that being said, hopefully that makes sense a little bit more now. I think that is all for now. So yeah, thank you for listening. And if you have any continued questions about this process or about laparoscopy or Lupron, let me know, because I want to be that positive resource for you guys. Yeah, we'll see what God has in store and what it's like when I report back.